Hello friends, and welcome to the Saturn Return Survival Guide. I'm Pix, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most significant astrological events in an individual's life, the Saturn Return. As you approach this pivotal time in your life, you might be feeling overwhelmed or uncertain about what to expect. The Saturn Return, which happens every 27 to 30 years, is a powerful astrological event that marks a time of significant growth, change, and maturity in a person's life. During this period, Saturn, the planet of structure, discipline, and responsibility, returns to the position it occupied in your birth chart, bringing with it challenges and opportunities for growth. So this Saturn Return Survival Guide is designed to help you understand the significance of your Saturn return, what you can expect, and how to navigate this very transformative time with ease and intention. And the guide is not only useful for those who are approaching or currently experiencing their Saturn return, but also for those of us who have already been through it. By revisiting the themes and experiences of your Saturn return, you can gain further insight and understanding into the long-term effects and continued growth opportunities that arise from this powerful astrological event. So we're going to be discussing all things Saturn, Saturn archetypes and associations, the Saturn return's capabilities, its common challenges, and I'll show you how to calculate the impact of your Saturn return, and I'll talk about the benefits and opportunities that come from your Saturn return. And in the end, I will give you some practical and magical tips for surviving your Saturn return. So, this guide is the ultimate resource for anyone navigating their Saturn return, whether you're just starting to feel its effects, in the midst of it, or looking to deepen your understanding of its impact. Stay tuned on more information on how to navigate this period with grace, resilience, and purpose. Okay, so let's do a quick little overview on what is a Saturn return and why is it important exactly. The Saturn return is a significant astrological event. Like I said earlier, it occurs approximately every 27 to 30 years, marking a completion of one full orbit of Saturn around the Sun in relation to your birth chart. It's considered a time of growth, maturity, and transformation, where individuals are faced with challenges and obstacles that force them to reassess their life and their responsibilities and their priorities. Society tends to place a significant emphasis on turning 30 years old, marking a shift towards a more serious and mature stage of life. Feeling 30 looming can bring about a sense of pressure and a sense of urgency to assess your life and make important decisions about the future. Is it just because of the number? Is the big 3-0 that scary? Really, true maturity comes through successfully navigating challenges and trials posed by Saturn during its return, which asks 3 big questions. Number 1, is the foundation of your life stable and secure? Number 2, are you staying true to your values and your authentic self? And number 3, are you capable of shouldering the responsibilities that you seek to build for yourself? The Saturn return represents a turning point in an individual's life, and it can bring about significant changes to personal development. It's believed to be a time of maturation, where you have to take on greater responsibilities, face fears and limitations, and make important decisions about the future. It's also a time of introspection and reflection, as you are faced with the realities of choices that you've made on your life path. The onset of aging, feeling yourself age, noticing your first gray hairs, all serve as a reminder of the passage of time and the expectations that come with that, such as having a stable home, a family, or children. But embracing the Saturn return can be a life-changing experience that helps shape the course of your life for the better. By facing the challenges posed by Saturn and answering the questions it asks, you can gain deeper understanding of your own strengths and your own limitations and build a stronger foundation for the future, achieving a true sense of maturity and purpose. All right, let's talk about Saturn's archetypes and associations. So when we talk about Saturn, it has a lot of different archetypes and themes that give us an understanding of the kind of energies and influences that it brings into our lives. These archetypes can help us give a deeper look into the experiences and the challenges that come with the Saturn return. And by understanding these different archetypes, we can get better prepared for and be better able to navigate this transformative time in our lives. So let's start with number 1. Archetype number 1, fathers, authority figures. Saturn symbolizes the fatherly figures in our lives, whether they are actual fathers, superiors, or those who hold some sort of position of authority. During a Saturn return, issues and experiences related to these sort of things might surface. Saturn instructs us about the role of authority, emphasizing a need for structure, order, and rules in society. And that brings us to association number 2, structure, order, rules, systems, establishments. Saturn highlights the significance of having a well-organized environment, both our personal and social spheres. Saturn also represents establishments like corporations, governments, and organizations that promote stability and order. During a Saturn return, these themes may come to the forefront in your life. Number 3, responsibility, duty, hard work, practicality, and utility. Saturn teaches us about responsibility, duty, and hard work. It asks us to be practical and to take care of responsibilities in our lives, no matter how difficult they are. It emphasizes the importance of utility and making sure what we do has a practical purpose. Number 4, discipline, self-control, maturity. Saturn teaches us the importance of being mature and responsible and asks us to exercise self-control and self-sufficiency in our lives. It emphasizes the need to be disciplined and focused in order to achieve goals. Autonomy, codependency, and interdependency can be topics with Saturn. Number 5, long-term commitments and endurance. Saturn asks us to commit to something and to be patient and persistent in pursuing goals, no matter how long it takes. It emphasizes the importance of sticking to commitments and persevering through difficult times. Number 6, time, aging, wisdom, elders. Saturn symbolizes the progression of time and the accumulation of wisdom as we age. So father time, grandparents, the old wise sage type energy. It represents guidance and experience from elders who can offer valuable insights based on life experiences. The Saturn return can bring with it the realities of aging. It brings about the scary 30s and the appearance of gray hair maybe, or, your knees start hurting more, your back starts hurting more. You're feeling the onset of aging, right? And maybe also an increased focus on spending time with elders. Number 7, delay, obstacles, and hardship. I know we love this. Saturn asks us to be patient and persistent in the face of difficulties, and it teaches us the importance of persevering through difficult times. It also reminds us of the lessons we can learn from hardship and adversity. Those gray hairs are earned, okay? Number 8, restriction, boundaries, and limits. Saturn asks us to be mindful of our limitations and to respect your own boundaries as well as the boundaries of others. It teaches us about the importance of setting healthy boundaries in our relationships and in our personal lives. Saturn's rings are representations of boundaries. It's little fence, right? Okay, number 9, karma, lessons, and tests. Saturn represents karma and the lessons we must learn in life. It It asks us to face our challenges and learn from our experiences, both positive and negative. It represents the tests we must take in order to grow and mature as individuals, a rite of passage of sorts. Number 10, fear, insecurity, depression, melancholy. Some more kind of Debbie Downer archetypes or associations. Saturn shows us our fears and our insecurities and helps us learn to overcome them. It does not help you sweep things under the rug. It also reminds us of the importance of finding joy and happiness, even in the darkest of times. Number 7, solitude, isolation, distance, or loneliness. Saturn likes to confront feelings of loneliness and learn how to find comfort and contentment in solitude. It also reminds us to maintain healthy relationships even when we are feeling distant from others. It teaches you how to not be lonely when you're alone, right? Okay, number 12, conservatism, sustainability, and legacy. Saturn tends to be conservative and traditional. It represents the legacy that we leave behind and the importance of making a positive impact on the world. Number 13, spirituality, truth, self-reflection, and inner growth are associations as well. Saturn is associated with spirituality and the search for truth. This can lead people to reflect on their inner selves, their beliefs, and their place in this world. This introspection can lead to growth and a deeper understanding of your own values and your own morals and your own authenticity. The journey towards self-discovery and self-awareness is a key effect and aspect of Saturn's spiritual and truth-seeking archetype. Saturn's rings represent the boundaries, like I said earlier, but they also represent boundaries between the material and the spiritual world or realm. So now I'm going to talk about Saturn's nature, which is cold and dry. It has a tendency to bring a sense of desiccation and chilliness to its associated events, circumstances, and individuals. The parts of the body that Saturn is associated with are, number 1, the teeth. Saturn's influence can be seen in teeth, bones. It's associated with the strength and stability of the bones. Arthritis, that means arthritis is a thing. So you can be, Saturn can be linked to conditions related to joints and things like arthritis. Saturn also has association with autoimmune issues or chronic issues. It's associated with things that are long term. Also, gray hair. I like to bring that up. Saturn's aging is seen in the graying of hair also. So it's common for any of these body parts or associations to be affected during your Saturn return or a Saturn transit. Saturn rules these parts and they are more susceptible to stress and difficulties during Saturnine periods. So get to know the different phases of Saturn and what they stand for. This type of understanding gives you a clearer picture of what you might be facing during your Saturn return and the challenges and the obstacles that might come up along the way. So take a moment to think about the archetypes that speak to you, and you kind of probably have an idea of which of those are going to be coming up. So let them steer you towards growth and fulfillment during this significant time in your life. Okay, so now I want to talk about the Saturn return's capabilities in your life. Let's talk about what the Saturn return is capable of, okay? So, for example, Saturn return is capable of encouraging personal growth and maturity. Saturn helps individuals take responsibility for their lives and make important decisions that shape their future, like getting married, buying a house, starting a business, or having children. Also, it's capable of fostering discipline and structure in your life. Saturn encourages us to establish solid foundations and create routines that allow you to make meaningful progress towards something. Saturn's also capable of helping you test commitments and test responsibilities. It challenges us to assess our commitments and responsibilities and determine whether they align with us and our values and our goals. Saturn can also bring to light areas in your life that you have been avoiding taking action, shoving under the rug, or ignoring them. And Saturn will force us to face our fears and overcome these things that we have ignored and shoved under the rug. Also, lastly, the last capability of Saturn I want to bring up, it offers opportunities for success and achievement. It's not all bad, right? Saturn can help us build necessary skills, knowledge, and resources to achieve goals and fulfill potential. It's important to keep in mind that all of Saturn's effects can vary greatly depending on the positions and the aspects in your birth chart and the nature of the specific transit occurring during the Saturn return. And we'll talk about how to calculate that a little bit later. So let's talk about the common challenges of a Saturn return. Listen up, okay? The Saturn return can be a rough ride. It's not necessarily a rough ride, but it can be at times. And it's not uncommon to feel lost or confused about your life's direction during these years. The pressure to make big decisions and reassess your life can be overwhelming and lead to feelings of self-doubt and insecurity. And let's not forget about the added responsibilities and expectations that come with the Saturn return. It can be daunting, sometimes to take on more responsibility and build a solid foundation for the future. And it's normal to feel overwhelmed by the weight of these expectations. Also, Saturn can bring feelings of loneliness or isolation as it forces you to face the consequences of your choices and changes in your life. This can be a time of significant change and transition, which is tough to handle on your own. It's also worth noting that the Saturn return requires a lot of hard work and discipline to reach your goals and aspirations. So this extra effort that you're putting in, you're churning out, can increase stress, anxiety, and even depression at times. But here's the thing, okay? These challenges are all part of growth and maturity and transformation. And the Saturn return helps you clarify your goals and your life direction and leads you to a deeper understanding of yourself and gives you much greater self-awareness. So it's crucial to find healthy ways to cope with whatever comes up during your Saturn return and manage your stress. And I will give you some tips for dealing with that in a little bit. Next, we're going to go into calculating the impact of your Saturn return. Okay, so if you want to understand the impact of your Saturn return, it's helpful to figure out how it's going to affect the different parts of your life. This gives you an idea of what to expect and what sort of challenges that you might face. We'll talk about how to calculate the effects of your Saturn return and what kind of changes you can expect during this time. So first, the number one thing we're going to look at is considering your sect light. Were you born during the day or were you born during the night? The term sect in astrology refers to how a birth chart is classified based on the time of day you were born. If you were born during the day, you are of the day sect, or you have a day chart. If you were born in the nighttime, you have a night sect chart or a night chart. If the sun is above the horizon, above the ascendant-descendant axis in your chart, then it's a day chart. If it's below the horizon, then it's a night chart. The sun is the day sect light and the moon is the night sect light. In a day chart, the sun is more prominent and Jupiter is considered to be the benefic planet, meaning it has the most positive influence and is associated with the best things. On the other hand, in a day chart, Mars is considered to be the out-of-sect malefic, meaning that it has the most negative influence in your chart and linked to the most troubling challenges. In a night chart, the moon is more prominent and Venus is the benefic, meaning it has a positive influence and the best associations. On the other hand, Saturn is the out-of-sect malefic, meaning it has a more negative influence and is linked to more challenges. So you can see where I'm going with this, maybe. People with day charts might have a small advantage over night charts during their Saturn return. Saturn is not a day chart's malefic out of Sect, which could make the process a little bit easier for them. People with night charts might face a little bit more of a challenging time during their Saturn return compared to those with day charts, but this is just one factor in the Saturn return soup, right? So Sect, that's number one. Number two, we're going to look at Saturn's essential dignities. In astrology, dignity refers to a planet's status or position in a certain sign of your birth chart. Dignity helps determine the strength and the influence of a planet in your chart. Saturn is strongest when it's in Capricorn, Aquarius, or Libra, which is its domicile and exaltations. That means that when Saturn is in these signs, its themes of responsibility, discipline, hard work, and planning for the future may be stronger in your life. However, if Saturn is in Cancer, Leo, or Aries, its detriment or fall, it might be a little bit weaker and its themes might be a bit more extreme or a bit more harsh. This means you might face a little bit greater challenges in embodying these Saturnine themes, and you might feel weighted down by responsibility or struggle to find purpose. With this placement, Saturn requires more effort by you to fully express itself. Saturn also has terms and faces that can make it stronger, and I'm not going to go into that because otherwise the video will be 1,000 hours long, but you can download the Saturn Return Survival Guide PDF by checking the link in this description, and all of the terms and faces are listed there by degrees. Now we're going to look at number 3, Saturn's accidental dignity. If essential dignity is the sign that it's in, accidental dignity is everything else, okay? When it comes to Saturn in a birth chart, it's believed that it holds a lot of weight in its rulership and exaltation, like we were saying, but you might not always see its impact right away. The level of impact is actually determined by accidental dignity, which is basically the planet's ability to take action. There are certain houses in a birth chart that are considered the most important and influential, and they are, in this order, the 1st house, the 10th house, the 7th house, the 4th house, the 11th house, and the 5th house. Out of these, the ones that are the angular houses are the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th. They are the most active and have the biggest impact. If Saturn is placed in one of these houses in your chart, its influence will be felt very strongly and will leave a very lasting impression because these angular houses symbolize the core aspects of our lives like self-expression, home, partnerships, and career. For most people, these are the areas that shape their life story. Okay, little side note about essential dignity versus accidental dignity. Think of essential dignity as the planet's capability and accidental dignity as its opportunity or its circumstance. For example, imagine someone who's really talented and skilled, but working in a toxic work environment with a mean boss and low pay. Astrologically speaking, that would be like having a strong planet in a tough position. It doesn't take away the planet's strength, but it limits its chances to show off the strength. On the other hand, you might work for a fancy and respected company, but not have the skills to do the job well, leading to mistakes in public. That would be like a weak planet in the 10th house. There are different combinations of strong and active planetary placements in a birth chart. A planet could be strong and functional, but inactive. Strong and functional and active, that's the ideal situation. Or it could be not very functional and active. Or it could be not very functional and not very active. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about Saturn's houses and the themes and circumstances that can come up knowing what house your Saturn is in. When you reach your Saturn return, the house placement of your natal Saturn and the houses ruled by Saturn, which are the Capricorn and Aquarius houses in your chart, will experience changes and growth. Saturn's energy brings an emphasis on responsibility, structure, and hard work, and how this plays out in your life can vary depending on the specific house topics and the unique aspects of your birth chart. If Saturn is placed in one of the angular houses, like I was talking about earlier, your Saturn return will be particularly influential and impactful. So let's get into some themes for Saturn in or ruling each of the houses. Let's start with Saturn in or ruling the first house. A Saturn return here is associated with major changes and transitions to your sense of self, identity, and personal growth. Also, relationships can be affected. This is a time of increased self-awareness and introspection, as well as reevaluation of your values and beliefs. During your Saturn return, you might experience challenges related to self-confidence or self-worth. Saturn tests your foundation and makes you confront any limitations or restrictions that have been holding you back thus far. This manifests in experiences like feeling uncertain about your direction in life, struggling with self-doubt, or committing to self-betterment. This is a transformative time, and you're able to develop a stronger sense of self and a clearer direction in life. So real quick, some examples of experiences during a Saturn return in the first could include rethinking your goals and priorities in life, fundamentally changing, like getting married, getting divorced, having kids, feeling a heightened sense of responsibility for your personal life path, experiencing changes in physical appearance, such as losing weight or changing your hairstyle, changing your overall style, maybe seeking to present a more mature and responsible image to the world, reassessing your personal relationships and letting go of those that no longer serve you, focusing on self-care and improving your physical health and well-being, developing a stronger sense of self-awareness and identity, and assessing your personal strengths and weaknesses and working to improve them. So those are some things to look out for Saturn return in your first house, or if you're in your Saturn return and you're a Cap rising or an Aquarius rising. Those are some themes. Now moving on to Saturn in or ruling the second house. A Saturn return in the second house is associated with major changes and transitions to your material wealth, your values, and your self-esteem. This is a time of increased focus on financial stability, material security, and personal comforts. During your Saturn return, you might experience challenges related to your relationships with money around this time, like experiencing financial instability, some sort of loss of material assets, or struggling to establish a secure financial foundation on some level. You might feel a sense of uncertainty and dissatisfaction with your personal values, which leads to a reassessment of your priorities in life. Working hard and committing to a plan or a job or something that gives you financial material security is possible. This is a very transformative time, and you are able to build a stronger foundation for your material life. You might come to a deeper understanding of your values, of your financial priorities, and what brings you true comfort and true security. So some examples of experiences during a Saturn return or ruling the second house include reevaluating your personal values and beliefs, especially around money, possessions, and your self-worth. Again, challenges related to financial stability, income, or resources. Examining your relationship with money and material possessions and making changes that align with your values. Developing a stronger sense of self-worth, feeling more confident with your finances and material resources. Reassessing your relationship with possessions, such as decluttering or downsizing belongings, or making a very big purchase of some kind. Overall, though, making significant strides towards financial stability and independence. So those are some things to look out for if you are going to experience your Saturn return in the second house, or if Capricorn and Aquarius rule your second house. All right, let's talk about a Saturn return in the third house, or a Saturn ruled third house. So, Saturn return in the third house brings challenges related to your immediate environment, including your relationships with friends, siblings, neighbors, relatives, and your daily routines and modes of transportation. This is a time when you are forced to face limitations or obstacles in your immediate environment and also within your mental health and your perspectives and the way that you think about things. Your Saturn return will help you reevaluate the quality and the value of your immediate environment and your relationships and communications with others. In terms of communication, because the third house rules communication, Saturn return might prompt you to re-examine the way that you express yourself, whether it is writing, speaking, or using technology and apps. You might also feel a greater sense of responsibility to improve some sort of technical skill and, learn and better yourself with that technical skill. The Saturn return is a time for growth and transformation around your perspectives and the way that you think about things and the way that you think about your environment and how you interact in your environment. You might develop a deeper understanding of your own beliefs and your own values and get closer to your authenticity and be more open to new experiences and new ways of thinking. So it's important for you to approach this Saturn return with a positive attitude and be proactive in seeking support from loved ones, practicing self-care, and seeking therapy and counseling when you need it, which is usually when you don't know what else to do and no one else in your life knows what to do. So here are some examples of experiences during a Saturn return or a Saturn-ruled third house. A focus on improving communication skills and building better relationships with your siblings or your cousins or your aunts and uncles or close friends. Changes to your immediate environment, such as moving to a new neighborhood or changing roommates. The need to be more responsible and organized, especially related to your car or your mode of transportation and your daily routines. The development of technical skills also and proficiency with technology and software, particularly in regards to divination or writing and other forms of communicating. Divination is astrology, tarot, all the ways that you can look into the other side. So also a reevaluation of your perspectives and your thought processes and the way that you've been thinking about things. And it can lead to greater self-awareness and definite personal growth. And lastly, I already talked about this, but the exploration of divination and other spiritual practices to help you gain a deeper understanding of the world around you and of yourself. So those are some things to keep in mind if you have a Saturn return in the third house, or if your third house is ruled by Capricorn or Aquarius during your Saturn return. And now we're moving on to the fourth house. Okay, a Saturn return in the fourth house can indicate major changes and transitions with your private life and your family dynamics. This is a time of increased introspection and self-awareness, as well as time to reevaluate your roots, your upbringing, and your foundation. During your Saturn return, you might experience challenges related to your sense of security or stability or foundation. Saturn is testing your foundation and making you confront any limitations or restrictions that are holding you back. This can manifest in experiences like feeling uncertain about your home life or struggling with your home life or your family dynamics or feeling overwhelmed by the responsibilities of your home life or overwhelmed with the responsibilities that come from your ancestors or your roots. So this is a very transformative time, and you're going to be better able to develop a stronger sense of self and a clearer understanding of family dynamics in your life and help you bring about a more secure foundation. So it's important for you to find healthy ways to cope with these feelings. Do not isolate yourself completely. Seek support from loved ones. Practice self-care. Seek therapy and counseling when necessary. So, some specific examples of experiences during a Saturn return in the fourth house can include reevaluating your relationship with your family and your ancestors, making major changes to your foundation and living situation, like moving or renovating or redecorating your house, confronting challenges related to your sense of security and stability, facing obstacles related to real estate or property ownership, selling, buying houses, that sort of thing. Dealing with family dynamics and family conflicts, reflecting on your childhood and your upbringing, and examining your family history and your roots. These are all examples of experiences for a Saturn return or a Saturn ruled, as in Capricorn or Aquarius, ruled fourth house. And now moving on to the fifth house. A Saturn return in the fifth house is associated with significant changes in your creative expression, your recreation, and your love life. During a Saturn return, Saturn's going to test your approach to these things, your creative expression, your recreation, and your love life, forcing you to reassess your priorities and your commitments. This is a time of increased focus on personal expression and creativity, as well as a period of introspection around your relationship to pleasure, fun, recreation, and sexuality. This Saturn return will also prompt you to reassess your relationships and your approach to love and romance. This can lead to a greater sense of maturity and responsibility in your personal and romantic life. However, this change can also bring about challenges like difficulty finding or maintaining relationships or feeling a sense of pressure to settle down on some level. Additionally, the fifth house is associated with children and childbirth, so this sort of Saturn return might prompt you to reevaluate your views on starting a family and the responsibilities that come with being a parent, or brings up things to do with your children if you already have children. It's important for people to find healthy ways to cope with these changes, like, seeking support from your loved ones, practicing self-care, seeking therapy and counseling when needed. But let's talk about some specific examples of what could go down during a Saturn return or a Saturn-ruled fifth house. Reevaluating your relationship with fun and pleasure, and potentially feeling pressure to tone down any impulsive or careless behavior. Feeling a sense of responsibility or obligation to bring more structure or discipline into your hobbies or your creative pursuits. Challenges in your dating or romantic life, including difficulties with commitment or finding a sense of security in relationships. Dealing with responsibilities of starting a family or having children or something to do with your children's life. And also a shift from short-term indulgences to more long-term plans and investments in your creative and leisurely interests. So those are some things to keep in mind if you have a Saturn return in the fifth house, or if you have your fifth house ruled by Capricorn or Aquarius. Now we're moving on to Saturn in the sixth. Okay, Saturn return in the sixth house is associated with changes to your work, your health, and your daily routine. This is a time of increased focus and responsibility and discipline in your daily routine, as Saturn is testing your ability to manage a workload and maintain your physical and mental well-being. During a Saturn return here, you might experience challenges related to your job, like feeling overworked, dealing with difficult colleagues or clients, or facing challenges overall. You might also experience physical health issues or challenges in your daily routine, like difficulties in finding a work-life balance, or difficulties maintaining a healthy lifestyle, or difficulties dealing with the day-to-day thing of going to the doctor and that sort of thing. You might also experience changes related to responsibility and a relationship with your pets as well. This can manifest as experiences like having to make decisions about pet care, or the well-being of your pets, or needing to take on more responsibility with your pets. You might also need to reevaluate your relationship with your pets overall and make changes to better support their well-being. This is a transformative time, and you're able to develop a stronger work ethic and healthier habits. It's important for you to find healthy ways to cope with this stress and these challenges. So don't forget to seek support from loved ones, practice self-care, and seek therapy and counseling when needed. With a positive attitude and proactive approach, the Saturn return in the 6th house can be an opportunity for major personal growth and improved work and health habits. So a couple of specific examples of experiences during a Saturn return in the 6th house could include feeling overwhelmed with work and responsibilities, or struggling with physical health or chronic conditions, feeling frustrated with your daily routine and lacking a sense of direction, facing challenges with your workplace or your colleagues or your clients, making changes to improve your work-life balance and your overall health, taking on new responsibilities or learning new skills to advance your career, and overall reevaluating your approach to work and health and making positive changes there. So those are some things to keep in mind if you are going to have a Saturn return in the 6th house, or during your Saturn return if you have Capricorn or Aquarius ruling your 6th house. And moving on to Saturn in the 7th house. A Saturn return in the 7th house is associated with major changes and transitions in your relationships and your partnerships. This is a time of increased self-awareness and introspection about your patterns and tendencies in relationships, as well as a time to reevaluate the balance of give and take and your boundaries in your partnerships. During your Saturn return, you might experience challenges related to relationships and partnerships and those dynamics, as Saturn will be testing the foundation of these connections and make them confront any limitations or restrictions that have been holding you back. This manifests with experience like feeling uncertain in a romantic relationship, struggling with trust issues, or feeling overwhelmed by the responsibilities and expectations of a partnership. However, this is a very transformative time, and you're going to be more able to develop a strong understanding of your own needs and your own desires in relationships, and this helps you create more fulfilling partnerships and social interactions. So it's important to find healthy ways to cope with this. Don't forget to seek support when you need it, practice self-care, seek therapy and counseling. With positive attitude and proactive approach, a Saturn return in the 7th house is an opportunity for personal growth and major relationship development. So some examples of specific experiences during a Saturn return in the 7th house or ruled by Saturn include reevaluating existing relationships and reassessing the balance of power and responsibility within those relationships, having somebody an elder come into your life, or meeting somebody who is very long-term for you, or being the elder in someone else's life, a desire to establish stronger, more committed partnerships, whether in love or in business. Business partnerships are huge here. Experiencing challenges or obstacles in finding a compatible partner, leading to a stronger focus on self-improvement and personal growth and being okay with being alone. Feeling a sense of responsibility to create a more mature and stable relationship dynamic for yourself, like getting married, getting divorced, or opening the relationship, for example. Also, a focus on working through conflict and resolving relationship issues in a responsible and mature way. A desire to define and clarify relationship roles, boundaries, and expectations. And lastly, reflecting on the dynamics of your partnerships and the impact of relationships on your own personal growth and development. So these are some things to keep in mind if you are going to have a Saturn return in the 7th house, or if your 7th house is ruled by Capricorn or Aquarius. And we're going to move on to Saturn in or ruling the 8th house. A Saturn return in the 8th house indicates major changes and transitions related to any resources that are shared, that you share with others, also transformations, and overall the deeper aspects of life. This is a time of increased introspection and self-awareness, as well as time to reevaluate your own values and beliefs. So during your Saturn return, you might experience challenges related to financial stability, emotional security, and some sort of sense of control of your life. Saturn tests your foundation and makes you confront any limitations and restrictions that have been holding you back, which can manifest in experiences that are related to financial stress, relationship difficulties, or emotional turmoil. However, this is a very transformative Saturn return, as you are more able to work through your baggage and gain a deeper understanding of your emotional and financial needs. It's important for you to find healthy ways to cope with this Saturn return, making sure you are not isolating yourself, seeking support from loved ones, practicing self-care regularly, and seeking counseling or going to therapy. With a positive attitude and a proactive approach, your Saturn return in the 8th house is an opportunity for major personal growth and emotional healing. So some examples of specific experiences during a Saturn return in the 8th house can include things like reevaluating and restructuring your financial agreements and relationships related to shared resources such as taxes, mortgages, or loans. Also, confronting past traumas, past loss, past deaths, which can bring a much deeper understanding of your own emotional and psychological needs. Experiencing challenges related to personal transformation, such as finding stability or significant changes in life, or overcoming anxiety and mental health issues. Also, creating or working with inheritances, trusts, or wills. Examining your own personal values and beliefs related to money and wealth, and making changes that align with them and your life goals and priorities. And lastly, reassessing power dynamics in relationships and exploring the role that plays in your life, including looking at your own fears and insecurities. So these are some things to keep in mind with a Saturn return in the 8th house. It's a bit bittersweet. There's some challenges, but there's a very silver lining with this house. It is extremely growth inducing and can be really good for your financial security. So keep that in mind if you're having a Saturn return in the 8th house, or during your Saturn return if your 8th house is ruled by Capricorn or Aquarius. And now moving on to Saturn in or ruling the 9th house. And a Saturn return here is associated with major changes having to do with your beliefs, your values, and your overall worldview. This is a time of increased self-awareness and introspection, and a time to reevaluate your understanding of the world and your place in it. During a Saturn return in the 9th house, you might experience challenges related to your beliefs and understanding of the world. Saturn tests your foundation and makes you confront any limitations and restrictions that have been holding you back. And this can manifest in ways like feeling a sense of uncertainty about your beliefs, struggling with self-doubt, and feeling overwhelmed with the responsibilities and expectations of adulthood. This is a very transformative Saturn return, and you will be more able to develop a sense of self and a clearer direction in life with this Saturn return. So make sure you have your healthy ways to cope. Make sure you're not isolating yourself. Seek support from loved ones, practice self-care regularly, and go to therapy or counseling when necessary. With a positive attitude and proactive approach, a Saturn return in the 9th house can be a major opportunity for personal growth and epic self-discovery. So here are some specific experience examples of having a Saturn return in the 9th house. Maybe reevaluating your beliefs and your spiritual practices, changing your spirituality in some way. Feeling a sense of boredom or disillusionment with your belief systems. Struggling with fear and anxiety related to spirituality and religion. Considering taking a journey or a trip to gain new perspectives, like traveling abroad. Feeling a need to study and learn more. Feeling pressure to conform to societal norms and societal beliefs. Reevaluating your relationship with astrology, the occult, or other esoteric type things like tarot or even yoga. Feeling a sense of responsibility to share knowledge and belief with others on some level. Teaching, learning. We're learning and we're teaching with this Saturn return. Experiencing challenges related to the legal system is possible also, or academia and schooling on some level. Challenges could be just doing the damn thing. We all know that the legal system and academia are just challenges in and of themselves. So working with those systems are a possibility also. So those are some things to look out for if you are having your Saturn return in the 9th house, or if Capricorn or Aquarius rule your 9th house. And now I'm going to move into Saturn in or ruling the 10th house. A Saturn return in the 10th house is associated with major changes and transitions in your career and your reputation and the roles you take on in life. This is a time when Saturn tests your career foundation and makes you confront any limitations or restrictions that have been holding you back in your professional life or with your roles that you take on in life. During this Saturn return, you might experience challenges related to your career or your public image, like uncertainty about a direction in your job, struggling with self-doubt in your abilities, feeling overwhelmed by responsibilities and expectations in your roles. This can also manifest in experiences like changing a job or career. This can also manifest with experiences like changes with your job or your career, facing difficulties in climbing the corporate ladder, or dealing with negative public perceptions or criticism. But this is a majorly transformative time, and you are much more able to develop a strong sense of purpose and a clearer direction in your personal life. So make sure you're finding healthy ways to cope with this. Don't isolate yourself. Seek support from colleagues, practice self-care, and seek counseling or career counseling. With a positive attitude and a proactive approach, a Saturn return in the 10th house can be an opportunity for major professional growth and overall life advancement. So some examples of specific experiences during a Saturn return in the 10th house could include things like a reassessment of your career path and a desire to pursue more meaningful and fulfilling professional life. Challenges related to advancing your career or finding stability and security in the workplace, or an increased sense of responsibility and pressure to perform well in your work, or starting a business, being promoted into an authority position, or difficulties balancing your personal life and your professional goals, feeling like your personal life is being compromised at the demands of your career. That's a theme. Also, confronting your limitations or your restrictions in life overall, like a lack of recognition, a lack of support, or a lack of resources, confronting that. Also, reevaluating your reputation and your image and making changes that align with your true values and goals and authentic self. Also, reflecting on how your professional life fits into a larger picture of your life purpose and your values. And lastly, the desire to make a significant impact or contribution in your life and in the world. There's just this weight of Saturn sitting there on your reputation, okay? So these are some things to consider when you have a Saturn return in the 10th house. There are some challenges, but there's major advancement that's possible. And this is also relative if your 10th house is ruled by Capricorn or Aquarius during your Saturn return. It's relevant. Okay, moving on to Saturn in the 11th house or ruling the 11th house. A Saturn return in the 11th house is associated with a focus on your social and professional relationships and your place within your community and larger networks. This is a time of reassessing and restructuring your support systems, as well as reflecting on your goals and your aspirations, both on a personal level and a collective level. During a Saturn return in the 11th house, you might experience challenges related to your connections and your relationships as Saturn tests the stability and the strength of your bonds. It manifests in experiences like feeling a sense of loneliness or disconnection from a social circle, feeling like you're not receiving adequate support from your friends or your allies, or experiencing conflicts or disagreements with those that you consider close. It could also usher in meeting a colleague or a community that you have long-term potential with, and also offers an opportunity to build stronger and more meaningful relationships and find fulfillment in authentic connection with other people. So some examples of specific experiences during a Saturn return in the 11th house can include things like reevaluating and redefining your social circle and your friendships, or a sense of loneliness or isolation as you realize that some of your relationships and friendships no longer serve their growth and personal goals. Also, an increased focus on building and strengthening your network and your connections with other people, including professional connections and allies. Or challenges in maintaining and balancing relationships with friends or with a community or with professional colleagues. Also, a heightened sense of responsibility to use your influence and your connections for the greater good and to make a positive impact on society. Also, a sense of purpose and motivation to work towards your goals with the support of your community and your friends. Not alone. That's the key, not alone. And lastly, the last example I have is reassessing the groups and organizations that you are involved in and figuring out whether or not they align with your values and beliefs and adjusting accordingly. So these are some things to keep in mind when you have your Saturn return in the 11th house, or if your 11th house is Capricorn or Aquarius. And now moving on to Saturn in or ruling the 12th house. During a Saturn return in the 12th house, you might experience challenges related to your sense of solitude and isolation. The 12th house represents the unconscious mind, and during a Saturn return here, Saturn's going to force you to confront hidden fears, anxieties, and traumas that have been affecting you on a subconscious level. This is a time of introspection and self-reflection, and you might feel a sense of needing to retreat or withdraw from your normal routine and your normal relationships. You might feel some sort of sense of confinement with a Saturn return here, either physically or emotionally, as you are forced to confront limitations and restrictions. You might feel stuck or trapped in a current situation during a Saturn return and might struggle to find a way forward. And it's important for you to find healthy ways to cope with this, like seeking support from loved ones, not isolating yourself, practicing self-care regularly, and going to therapy. On the other hand, this is a very spiritual house. So this is a very spiritual time also during your Saturn return. It's a time of spiritual growth and self-discovery, and you are more able to gain a deeper understanding of your inner self and connect with your subconscious and unconscious mind. This leads to a greater sense of awareness and a stronger connection with your intuition, which is an amazing tool to have. So let's talk about some examples of specific experiences during a Saturn return in the 12th house. Number 1, the need to retreat from social situations and engage in more solitary activities. Number 2, confronting challenges related to your spirituality or connection to a higher power. Number 3, struggling with fears that have been hidden or anxieties or psychological challenges that have been previously repressed. Number 4, traveling solo. That's a huge one for a Saturn return in the 12th house. Number 5, some sort of period of transformation and growth through spiritual practices, through therapy, or other forms of self-reflection and introspection. Number 7, I think, difficulties with feeling stuck in your life or feeling like you're not making progress in areas that are important to you. We're working on spiritual stuff right now, not material stuff, okay? Number 8. Is that where I'm at? I don't know. I don't know what number I'm on anymore. But a sense of marginality or feeling like you don't fit in with others on some level and having the ability to help other people in that situation. And lastly, dealings with hidden enemies. So this means like challenges that you might not have seen before or challenges that were not immediately apparent to you. So those are some things to keep in mind if you are going to have your Saturn return in your 12th house, or if Capricorn or Aquarius rule your 12th house during your Saturn return. So those are all the houses. And now I'm going to talk about other forms of accidental dignity. All right, so having Saturn in the main angular houses, like the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses, is definitely a big deal. And it means that Saturn and your Saturn return will hold a lot of power. But it's not the only thing to look at when you're finding out how strong Saturn is in your chart or what the circumstances are for Saturn in your chart. Let's talk about being on the angles. When Saturn is close to one of the 4 main points in your birth chart, called the angles, it can have a much bigger impact on your life for your Saturn return. These angles I'm referring to are the ascendant, which represents yourself and how you show yourself to the world. The midheaven, which represents your career and your public reputation. The IC, which represents your home and your family. And the descendant, which represents your relationships and your partnerships. If Saturn is close to one of these angles during your Saturn return, it will have a more noticeable effect in the area of life that the angle represents. For example, if Saturn is close to your ascendant, you may face challenges and growth opportunities related to your self-identity, your body, and how you express yourself in a much more visceral way. If Saturn's close to your midheaven, it might impact your career and your public image in a much more visceral, obvious, in-your-face way. If it's close to your IC, it might affect your home and your family life a lot more than others. And if it's close to your descendant, which is the exact opposite degree as your ascendant, it might affect your relationships and your partnership dynamics a lot more viscerally. So having Saturn close to one of those angles during your Saturn return can mean that the lessons and growth opportunities will be a lot more prominent and in your face. So those are the angles. The other things to look at is Saturn's happy place, Saturn's joy. Each planet has a special spot in the birth chart that it loves. This is known as its place of joy. For Saturn, its happy place is the 12th house. Now, just because a planet is in its joy doesn't mean that everything is all sunshine and rainbows, but it does mean that the planet is in a more positive state. So, what does that mean for Saturn in the 12th house during its return? Well, it could make the whole experience a little bit smoother, a little less bumpy. You have Saturn natally in your 12th house, so those 12th house themes are already very familiar to you and might be a little bit easier to access. Saturn has a natural affinity for the 12th house themes also, like spirituality, introspection, and the line between this world to the next. This placement can bring a much clearer understanding and a better grip on these hard to see areas of life, making it easier to handle any challenges that come up there. With Saturn in its good mood, in its joy, you might find it easier to confront your fears, overcome difficulties, deal with isolation, or find inner peace during this transformative experience. So we talked about the angles, the joys, and now we're going to talk about Saturn's movement. Is it retrograde? Is it stationary? Is it direct? Check your chart and look for a symbol that is the letter R or RX. That means that Saturn is retrograde in your chart. If you see an S near your Saturn, that means that it's stationing. It's like taking a break before changing its direction, forward or backward. If Saturn is retrograde in your chart, brace yourself into a deep dive into Saturn's territories in your life. Retrograde motion often means you got to go back and rework stuff from the past. So, during your Saturn return, you might face challenges and obstacles that force you to take a closer look at your personal responsibilities, commitments, and boundaries. And don't be surprised if you got to go through this process multiple times, or if this is the second time or third time, or, that sort of thing. But if Saturn is stationing, that means that it's focused like a spotlight, and its impacts are going to be strong, intense, and loud. So be prepared for Saturn's lessons and responsibilities to hit you full force if you have a stationing Saturn. It'll be a little bit slower also. That brings me into Saturn's speed. The speed of Saturn, the speed at which Saturn is moving, is a big part in figuring out its influence on you. You can calculate Saturn's speed for your chart using a planetary speed calculator online, an ephemeris online, or even astro software like SolarFire. If Saturn is moving quickly in your chart or during your return, you could expect things to happen quickly, like changes and developments coming one after another and quickly. This speed can bring a focus on responsibility, structure, and hard work, but you might have to make decisions quickly and be ready to adapt. On the other hand, if Saturn is moving slowly during your Saturn return, that means that things may unfold at a glacial pace or a slower pace. This can bring a focus on responsibility and structure, and they may not manifest quickly. So whether it's moving fast or slow, Saturn's speed can have a big impact on your experiences during your Saturn return. You can always work with an astrologer too to get more information about your specific chart and the speed at which your Saturn is moving. So the next thing to look at in accidental dignity is the natal aspects to your natal Saturn. So you have your Saturn in your birth chart, and then you have all the other planets in your birth chart. And whatever aspects are being made to Saturn from there have a big effect. These type of aspects will shape the challenges and the opportunities that you might face during this time. So to find out what aspects Saturn is making in your natal chart, you have a couple options. First, you can look at your chart and see which planets are forming a square, opposition, trine, or conjunction with Saturn. This gives you insight into the relationships between Saturn and the other planets and what other themes and topics will be involved in your Saturn return. Another option is to consult a chart table or a chart aspect table and look at the Saturn column specifically. This will give you a quick and easy view of all the aspects Saturn is making in your chart and how they could influence the themes and experiences during your Saturn return. You can see one of these charts by just calculating your chart with astro.com, for example. Usually there is an aspect table that comes with a chart, and you can find all of the aspects there. Now, let's talk about the main aspects to keep an eye out for when you are looking for what aspects your Saturn makes. Conjunctions, squares, oppositions, and trines. Conjunctions are when two planets are in close proximity to each other in the same sign. Saturn conjoining with another planet in your birth chart indicates that the energies of both planets are blending together, potentially heightening the influence of Saturn's themes and responsibilities, especially onto that planet. Squares are when two planets are 90 degrees apart. They are in the same modality, cardinal, fixed, and mutable. A Saturn squaring with another planet in your birth chart highlights the need for adjustments that can bring tension and challenges related to the blending of the two planet associations and the two different house topics. This aspect brings growth and development as you navigate the difficulties and find ways to harmonize the conflicting energies. Oppositions are when two planets are 180 degrees apart, opposite signs to each other. They are also in the same modality, cardinal, fixed, mutable. A Saturn in opposition with another planet in your birth chart can bring major awareness to the two planet energies and the associated house topics. This is a aspect for significant growth and transformation as you work through the opposition and find a way to live with the opposing energies. Oppositions are not meant to be blended. They're meant to be lived with. You're either doing one or the other. You can't do them both at the same time, at least. Now, lastly, trines. Trines are when two planets are 120 degrees apart. They are in the same element. Trines are always in the same element. If there is a Saturn in Virgo, then another planet in Capricorn or Taurus will always be trine your Saturn. And when Saturn is in a trine with another planet in your birth chart, there is a very supportive relationship between the two energies and the associated house topics. This brings a sense of ease and flow to the Saturn themes in your life. So now I'm going to list a couple of natal Saturn aspect examples, and we can see how these Saturn aspects in your natal chart could bring in themes with your Saturn return. So something like natal Mars squaring natal Saturn. This is an aspect that can bring difficulties in finding a balance between taking action and controlling impulses and achieving long-term goals while maintaining control over your actions. So struggling with feeling frustrated or blocked in pursuing desires or goals is a manifestation of this aspect. Struggling to assert yourself and take action in situations where assertiveness is required, as Saturn's influence might cause you to overthink and self-restrict. Or issues with authority is always huge with this aspect. Power struggles, or difficulty managing emotions, because Saturn can inhibit emotional expression and Mars can lead to impulsive behavior or outbursts. So those are some examples of what could be brought into a Saturn return due to its square to Mars. Another example, like natal moon conjoined natal Saturn. This aspect can bring difficulties in finding a balance between fulfilling emotional needs and satisfying family obligations, and achieving long-term stability while maintaining control over your behaviors and your emotions. So a person with a Saturn return who has this aspect might struggle with feeling trapped in familial obligations and responsibilities, being a huge theme, leading to emotion repressing and repressing your desires also. On the other hand, you might struggle to assert yourself and take care of your own needs because Saturn's influence can cause you to prioritize responsibilities to others above your own emotional and even physical needs. Also, with this aspect, you might experience difficulty in finding comfort and security because Saturn brings feelings of isolation and restriction, and the moon can lead to feelings of insecurity. So this is the type of theme that can be brought into your Saturn return due to its aspect. Another example, if you have natal Sun opposing your natal Saturn. This is an aspect that brings difficulties in finding balance between your personal expression and fulfilling your responsibilities. So a person with this aspect for their Saturn return might struggle with feeling restricted or limited in pursuing your personal goals and your desires because Saturn's influence might cause you to overthink and self-restrict. You might struggle with finding a sense of purpose and direction in life with Saturn snuffing you out or seeming to snuff you out, but he's just making you stronger. Or you might experience difficulty in asserting yourself or taking a leadership role, as Saturn can inhibit self-expression and the Sun represents our identity. Also, there could just be big changes in your overall plot line of your life. The Sun represents the overall plot of your life, and Saturn coming through and being activated can definitely bring some cold, chilly energy there and say no and restrict and change the course for you. But working on balancing personal expression with discipline and responsibility, you can learn to manifest your goals and desires in a very practical and grounded way while finding a very important purpose and direction in life. So we're looking at the opposing energies of Saturn and the Sun during your Saturn return. And then next, the last example I'm going to give is a nice one. How about that? Natal Venus trining natal Saturn is an aspect that brings stability and balance to your relationships and your creative expressions, as well as helps them manifest their desires in a practical and grounded way. So, some examples of what could manifest for a Saturn return with this aspect being involved. You might experience a strong sense of stability in your relationships and partnerships, as Saturn's activation helps bring in a level of maturity and commitment. You might also find success in creative pursuits because Saturn's structure and discipline can help turn Venus's vision into reality. Or there might be a flow of hard work and structure in your relationships and your creative endeavors, leading to lasting and fulfilling connections and achievements. This Saturn trine Venus activation can be really nice for a Saturn return. Okay. So the next thing we're going to look at, we're pretty much done with accidental dignity. Now we're going to look at transits to Saturn during your Saturn return. Okay, so let me tell you about the significance of the transits happening to Saturn during your Saturn return. It's just as important as the aspects between your natal Saturn and the rest of your natal chart. Each Saturn in a specific sign will go through unique transits during its return, making each Saturn return a unique, special snowflake. To determine the major transits that are happening during your Saturn return, you can, number one, check each year of your Saturn returns aspects online. For example, Google 2024 astrological aspects. My favorite is cafeastrology.com. And when you do this, you'll see a table and you can note any conjunctions, squares, and oppositions to any of the traditional planets. So any conjunctions, squares, or oppositions to Saturn from Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto are pretty epic, and these will be heightened times for your Saturn return. Number two, if you are more into tables in that way, you can use an ephemeris to see the planet positions on specific dates and identify its transits to Saturn. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Number three, or if you want an expert opinion, you can always consult an astrologer who can give you a much more in-depth interpretation of the transits happening during your Saturn return. And don't forget to download the Saturn Return Survival Guide PDF to get the major Saturn transit cheat sheet that I made. The link to get the PDF is in the description. Okay, and last but not least, we need to look at the date and length of your Saturn returns. It's very important to look at, one, how long your Saturn return will last. Number two, when the exact Saturn return will happen. And number three, how many passes Saturn makes over your natal Saturn due to its retrograde periods. The easiest way to check how long your Saturn return will last is to use the cheat sheet in the Saturn Return Survival Guide PDF, or to simply Google it. I know, how lame, right? But simply Google Saturn return in blank sign dates. Your Saturn return will technically last as long as Saturn is in the same sign as your Saturn. And listen up, okay? It's worth keeping in mind that during its retrograde periods, Saturn can move from one sign to another, but It can be just taking a temporary detour to check out the qualities of a new sign, and then will retrograde back into its other sign to tie up any loose ends. So the Saturn return doesn't officially end until Saturn has finished all of its retrogrades in that sign and doesn't keep switching between two signs anymore. Another way to check how long your Saturn return will last and when it will exact is to check an ephemeris. There's a link below to go to astro.com's ephemeris, and real quick, to use that ephemeris, you click on the year that Saturn is supposed to enter the same sign as your natal Saturn. If this is for Pisces, for example, you would look at 2023. Number 2, to find the start date of your Saturn return, find the month and date that Saturn enters 0 degrees of the same sign as your natal Saturn. So if you have Saturn in Pisces, you would find the start date of Saturn at 0 degrees Pisces. And to find, number 3, to find your exact Saturn return dates, you will find the year, the month, and the date that Saturn is at the same exact degree as your natal Saturn. So if you have Saturn at 23 degrees Pisces, you would go find in the table when Saturn was at 23 degrees Pisces, and this is your exact Saturn return day. And you want to do something special for yourself that day, okay? Number 4, to find the end date of your Saturn return, you got to find the year, the month, and the date that Saturn exits the same sign as your natal Saturn for good. Beware that Saturn often retrogrades out of signs and then back into them, so be sure that you double check by looking ahead 6 months or so until Saturn is solidly in another sign to make sure that you get that end date proper. If you have astro software like AstroGold or Time Passages or SolarFire, you can find the exact dates of your Saturn return or returns by looking for the times when transiting Saturn in the outer wheel is in the same degree as your natal chart in the inner wheel. But if you want an expert opinion, you can also reach out to an experienced astrologer. They are better able to give you the exact timing of your Saturn return and explain how it'll affect your life. And with this knowledge, you'll get a better understanding of what challenges and obstacles you might face and how to prepare for them. Okay, a little bonus. Profections. If you are familiar with profections, listen up. If Saturn is the dominant Time Lord or your signifier during any of the years of your Saturn return, when you're 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, the effects of your return are likely to be a lot more pronounced if Saturn is your Time Lord. This means that Saturn's energies and themes such as responsibility, structure, and hard work will be much more prevalent in your life during this time. The impact of your Saturn return will also be heightened if your 5th house, 6th house, or 7th house is dominated by Capricorn, Aquarius, or if they are occupied by Saturn in your natal chart. For example, if your 5th house is dominated by Capricorn, Aquarius, or occupied by Saturn in your natal chart, turning 28 will be a very significant milestone. If your 6th house is dominated by Capricorn, Aquarius, or occupied by Saturn in your natal chart, the milestone would be 29 years old. And if your 7th house is dominated by Capricorn, Aquarius, or occupied with Saturn in your natal chart, the milestone would be 30 years old. So just something to keep in mind is looking at your profections during your Saturn returns. And now we're moving on to the nicer part of the guide, surviving Saturn. Practical tips. So here's a list of 10 practical tips that I recommend you embrace during your Saturn return. We're going to start with number 1. Reflect and assess your life. Think about your goals and what you plan to achieve. Take stock of your current situation and make a plan. Harness this Saturn return. Be proactive. Number 2, set achievable and realistic goals for yourself. This will give you a sense of purpose and help you feel more in control. I took a bunch of classes during my Saturn return. It kept me busy from the emotional turmoil, and I had nice, realistic goals to keep me distracted. Number 3, take care of yourself. Maintain self-care. Maintain a self-care routine. Keep up with managing your stress and managing your anxiety. This means meditating, exercising, going to therapy, or engaging in any activity that brings you peace. Number 4, get organized, focus on structure in your life, and create a routine to stay on track. This is a big one. And number 5, reach out to support. Don't hesitate to turn to friends, family, or a therapist for help. Talking to someone helps you navigate big changes and helps you process things. Can make the process a lot smoother and a lot less confusing. Number 6, stay focused on your goals. Don't let setbacks discourage you. Stay committed to your vision. You got this. Stay focused. Number 7, embrace change. Even if it's tough, this is a chance for growth and transformation. Number 8, emphasize personal growth. Focus on self-improvement. Learn new skills. Seek new experiences and expand your knowledge. Emphasize personal growth. Number 9, be patient. Saturn return takes time, takes 3 years. So give yourself space to work through challenges. Don't rush it. Sink into it. And number 10, trust the journey. Believe that the path you're on will lead you to where you need to be. Remember, the Saturn return is a natural part of life. We all go through it, and you'll come out stronger and much more evolved. Now we are on to the magical tip for surviving your Saturn return. If you want some magical tips for surviving Saturn, astrological remediation is the thing to do. It's all about using symbols, wisdom, and methods to ease the obstacles in your birth chart. If you treat Saturn like a buddy that you can commune with and that you can give offerings to, your relationship with Saturn will grow and he'll be a little bit nicer to you. You can try various different strategies to balance out tough planetary influences with remediation, like doing rituals, meditations, wearing lucky gemstones, or carrying other types of charms. And like I said, these remediations, building a relationship with Saturn as an actual entity, can reduce the impact of difficulties that come from your Saturn return and make things easier for you. So here are some Saturn remediation ideas. Number 1, make a small space to honor Saturn, a Saturn altar, if you will. Saturn likes the colors black and gray. Saturn likes basic or boring offerings that like a grandpa would like black coffee, dark rum, dark alcohol, tobacco, things that are plain, unseasoned, or dark. Saturn also likes clocks, antiques, hourglasses, and bones. Saturn also likes anything black, like any black stones, like obsidian, tourmaline, or onyx. And the Vedic system attributes blue sapphire as the prime Saturn gem too. And the number 3, Saturn really likes the number 3. So you can put any of those things on an altar for Saturn. I recommend, you don't need like a big altar, you can just have a little space. I tend to use trays, like smoker trays as my altar because I have a very small house and I like to move them around my altars. So it can just be something small. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. You can even go as far as to being Helga from Hey Arnold and have like a shrine to Saturn in your closet. But yeah, it can be as big or as little as you need it to be. It's just about building the relationship. And those are the things that Saturn likes on their altar. Okay, number 2, other remediations for Saturn. Spending time with, volunteering for, or donating to causes that benefit the elderly. Spending more time with grandparents, just like spending time with the old neighbor down the street, spending time with your mentor, becoming an elder for someone else. But helping elders is definitely a Saturn remediation. Number 3, feeding crows is a Saturn remediation. Befriending and feeding crows, as well as cats, feeding and befriending cats. I actually couldn't get to filming or recording this Saturn episode until I got a cat for myself, so that's funny. Okay, number 4, I think this is a good remediation. Read the book The Greatness of Saturn, a therapeutic myth. Highly recommend. It really helps you like gain more of a relationship with Saturn. Number 5, you can recite the Orphic Hymn to Saturn, which you can get from the Saturn Return Survival Guide PDF. It's too long for me to recite to you right now. So check the link below to get the PDF. Anything done for Saturn should be done on Saturdays, especially on Saturdays, or during Saturn's planetary hour. Use the website I link below to calculate the planetary hours, but my preferred method for calculating planetary hours is the app Time Nomad. They have their own planetary hour widget even. It notifies you when the planetary hour changes, and it gives you a table. I love it. An example remediation practice could be making a Saturn altar space, lighting a black or gray candle, leaving offerings like coffee, tobacco, or rum on the altar, especially on Saturdays or at Saturn's hour, but anytime will do. Anything's better than nothing, you know what I mean? Decorate the altar with antiques, with thrifts, with bones, watches, clocks. Leave anything black or gray on the altar space, especially black crystals, or leave 3 of something on an altar. Saturn loves number 3. Calling or spending time with an elderly person you know is also good. Do something for Saturn every Saturday. How about that? Or try to make friends with crows or feed the feral cats. Things like that. Saturn remediations. So let's talk about the benefits that come from your Saturn return. Last but not least, the benefits and the opportunities that your Saturn return blossoms for you. Although it may be very daunting at first, the positive outcomes from a Saturn return are very profound and long-lasting. During a Saturn return, many individuals experience career advancements, improved relationships, personal growth, a stronger foundation, and a newfound sense of clarity and purpose. So some examples of opportunities and benefits that come from your Saturn return include, number 1, career advancement. For some people, the Saturn return brings opportunities for career advancement and increased financial stability. They have maybe landed their dream job, received a promotion, or started their own business. Number 2, improved relationships. The Saturn return is also a time of increased connection and intimacy with other people. You might find new love, deepen existing relationships, let go of toxic relationship dynamics that no longer serve you. But when you learn more about yourself, your relationships change too. Number 3, a solid foundation. A Saturn return can support building a family, settling down, buying a house, or healing generational trauma. Number 4, personal growth and self-discovery. Many people report that their Saturn return was a time of significant personal growth and self-discovery. They may have woken up to another layer of their authenticity, or simply started new hobbies, took up new interests, or made majorly positive changes to their health and their well-being. Number 5, Saturn can bring a sense of clarity. For some people, it brings even a sense of purpose. They might have found their calling in life, set new goals, or gained a better understanding of who they are and what they want out of life. Number 6, improved health and well-being. I kind of mentioned this earlier, but as its own note, some people use their Saturn return as an opportunity to focus on their health and their wellness, making positive changes and adopting a healthier diet, starting an exercise routine, or seeking medical help finally for some ongoing issues. And number 7, increased confidence and self-esteem always comes out of a Saturn return. It leads to a boost in confidence, allowing you to tackle new challenges and assert yourself more effectively in personal and professional relationships. So, in conclusion, the Saturn return is a big deal and brings tough times and growth opportunities. So have you been through your Saturn return already? Whether it was a challenging time or a period of growth and self-discovery, probably both. We'd love to read your story in the comments. So comment below and give us a little overview of what happened for your Saturn return. So in conclusion, the Saturn return is a big deal and brings tough times and growth. Saturn's essential and accidental dignity play a crucial role in determining the strength and the impact of your Saturn return. When Saturn is in a state of strong essential and accidental dignity, its energies tend to be more active, potent, and smooth or impactful. During a Saturn return, significant Saturn transits can amplify the already significant events and themes that the planet brings into your life. So, approach your Saturn return with an open mind and a willingness to learn and grow. By focusing on self-reflection, you can use this time to become stronger, wiser, and more confident. Embrace the challenges and opportunities that come, and you'll come out on the other side of your Saturn return even hotter. So, don't forget to download the Saturn Return Survival Guide PDF. The link is below. I also have to mention that I produce weekly and monthly horoscopes on my Patreon for my patrons, my besties. So if you're interested in getting weekly written horoscopes that talk about the week's themes and what to look out for, go ahead and check the link in my description to go to my Patreon and check it out. I also do monthly horoscopes. They're actually called R&Rs, where I tell you everything that's going to happen that month, what it'll entail, and also I give you remediations for your own personal chart to make the month easier for you. If you're interested in joining a really cool occult community, you can chat with me and a bunch of other really cool mystics in the 9th House Discord server. The link to join is below as well. I'm endlessly thankful for y'all's support and for you being here and listening to this. Go forth and slay your Saturn return. You're going to do just fine. And enjoy your rite of passage, shugs. I'll see you next time.